Hello everyone, Favorite Night Owl here with another segment of Scary Stories and Gameplay. For those of you who are interested, before we get started, I recently started a Subscribe Star account for those who are willing to help a small creator out. I'll be starting to upload content this weekend. Cool beans, cool beans. Like, share, and subscribe. Win or lose, let's get on with it, shall we? Cool beans. Title of today's story is It Was Only Supposed to Be One. Story was given to me by a local hunter who would like to remain anonymous. Alrighty then. For many years since I was little, I've heard stories about the dog man in my area. I'd even seen a few glimpses of abnormally sized wolves from time to time, although I never put much thought to it. I've picked up a history book or two, and I did know that, effectively, wolves were occasionally known to grow to abnormal sizes, depending on the circumstances in that local area. So I never thought it much of an issue. Wolves are dangerous, but they tend to keep their distance. Although, that began to change, in my opinion, as local hunting dogs began to go missing. Then, traps started to get set off. Sometimes with nothing in them, although other times there would be a limb of a deer, with the rest of it seemingly missing. We also get bear in our area, so that's what I generally chalked it up to. To me, scary stories were just that, scary stories to be told around the campfire and to scare kids to not go out at night. Although it was usually with a good reason. You don't want your younger brother to be eaten by a bear after all. Or a local wolf. Over time, though, people began to drop the word dogman quite a bit. Although I did not believe it myself, I knew something was up. So I decided to begin going out with my friends looking for tracks. We found bear tracks, we found wolf tracks, and wolf tracks that were considerably larger than they needed to be. So I began to assume that that's just what it was, just an abnormally sized wolf that had gone unnoticed. However, my opinion then started to change yet further, as circumstances began to change. What began to change is now local poachers started to go missing. And at the bar, that tended to be a big thing. Yeah, occasionally a poacher or two would go missing when going out on the wrong person's land, but never like this. And then a high licensed hunter went missing, and the sheriff launched an investigation. The body was eventually found, torn up, and the sheriff's department chalked it up to a wolf attack. What made this abnormal is the licensed hunter that went missing happened to be 6'7". Also, he tended to go out with a rifle chambered in .458. Usually .458 Winchester, although I heard he bought a full .58 lot not that long ago. That is a cartridge intended for a charging hippo. So, we generally assumed, considering the rifle was found soon after with all the rounds discharged, that whatever he hit must have been particularly large. I began to do research into the dogman and found they could be anywhere in the stories from about the size of a human to considerably larger than even a brown bear. So, I decided to begin taking precautions, as did the rest of the hunters in town. They began going out in teams, usually of 2 or 3 hunters, one with their standard deer rifle and the other one packing something a little bit more substantial. The local gun shop also saw an increase in sales of magnum caliber revolvers and automatic handguns. Me personally, I went out and bought the biggest thing I could find, which was a Desert Eagle, which is a semi-automatic pistol in 50 AE, although the one I bought came with a conversion kit to 44 Magnum. I chose to stick with the 50 as, at the very least, it had to be the size of a substantial bear if it took down a rather large hunter equipped with a dangerous game rifle. So I took further precautions and upped my rifle as well, which cost me a pretty penny, although I didn't want to take any chances. Not long after, I found tracks on my family's property, that of a abnormally sized wolf. Although by the gape, it would suggest to me that it was frequently walking on its hind legs. That was strange. I've heard of bears doing it, but only for brief periods. So I decided to tell my family what I found. That night, though, when we were all tucked in bed, we heard a rather large crash outside by where we keep the dogs. We went outside as fast as we could, me being only enough time to grab my rifle. We saw a rather large dark object standing over the gate to the dog's pen. We threw on the lights and the gate was torn completely open, and a large creature, clearly holding one of the dogs. It stood up on its hind legs, surprising all of us, and looked like a particularly large wolf. It had backward-facing knees and hands ending in claws, which was rather strange. I fired a shot off and clipped it in the shoulder. However, this only seemed to have agitated the creature, which ran off. Me and my family, talking about what we just saw, figured there was one place on the property where something that big would liable to try to make a home for itself. There was a ravine on our property with a creek running through it. It was surrounded by brush on both sides. So we decided that we were to go stake it out. We all got our supplies up the next day, and that night went out to investigate. We brought lights with us in case it got too dark to see anything up close. It was a full moon, so we thought we might not need it. However, we were quite wrong. That night, we began to hear movement in the brush and then heard something moving down to the creek. We saw upon looking out, a large dark figure by the creek. However, rather than take a shot, we threw the lights on just to see it. What we saw was the same creature. It even stood up and had a wound where I'd clipped it. Before we could get our shots off, though, to finish the creature off, more began to walk out of the shrubs. First one, then two, then three, and then a bunch of small ones. We realized we just walked into a family. We began to freak out and began to fire into the group of creatures, which only seemingly agitated them. We decided to make a break for the house, which we did as fast as we could, only stopping periodically to fire a few shots at the pursuing creatures, which would temporarily halt them. We got back to the house and slammed the doors, locked every window and shutter that we could. For the rest of the night, we heard the creatures clawing out the outside of the house and occasionally try to smash in the front door. Ever since then, we haven't seen the creatures and have decided never to go out to that part of the property. To this day, none of us go out in the woods alone, and we are always armed. Alright, thank you for your time. For those of you who are interested, check out my subscribe star account, DSR of a Relevant Pack. Like, share, and subscribe, and see everyone around!